If you have any lightweight scraps sitting around from other projects, you can easily use them to create a truly unique summer scarf. I made a pattern that you can download in the link below, totally free, no email address required. And then I'll teach you how to arrange your scraps and sew them together in this step-by-step tutorial. There are so many ways that you can wear a scarf like this, so feel free to play around with it and wrap your scarf however you like. So the first step is to just arrange your fabric scraps. Lay out your pattern and start to arrange your fabric scraps on top of it. I recommend doing this just to make sure that the scrap collage that you're making is going to be big enough for the final pattern. It's okay if the scrap collage goes beyond the edges of the triangle. You just want to make sure that the final layout is not too small. Also, remember that you need to overlap the fabric pieces to account for the seam allowance. So after you're happy with your collage of your scraps, you are going to sew them all together. Now, I recommend using French seams when sewing these together so that you can have a neater and more durable finished scarf. So I'm going to walk you through how to do a French seam, and then you're going to repeat the process for all of your scraps that you're sewing together. So choose two scraps to start with and sew them together with wrong sides together, and you're going to sew a narrow hem that is 2/8 of an inch or a 1/4 inch. Then you are going to trim the seam allowance, being careful not to cut the stitches. And then you are going to fold the fabric back over that seam to enclose the raw edges of the fabric. Press it this way before sewing it to make sure that it's nice and neat. Now you're going to sew a narrow 3/8 inch seam. After you sew it, press the seam towards whichever fabric is darker and more opaque. And now you've sewn your first French seam. You are going to repeat this process for all of your scrap pieces until you have your whole scrap collage connected. Once all of your scraps are sewn together, you are going to cut out your pattern. Overlay the scarf pattern on top of the fabric collage and cut it out. I like to use a cutting board and rotary cutter because it tends to keep the fabric from shifting around too much as I cut it out, but you can feel free to use whatever tools you're most comfortable with. Once you have the pattern cut out, all that's left to do is hem the scarf. Make a narrow hem all the way around on all 3 edges. You can change the thread color to match the fabric if you want to, or just use the same thread all the way around. And then you're finished.